It's a new day out here working in the shop, and today we're going to get started on this project right here. So this is a buddy of mine's. I think it's a 91 S10 Blazer. It is a two-door, and it's got a G80 in the rear that he put in it, and it's got the factory swing-out tire carrier. And I'm going to be solid axle swapping this for him. It's going to be my first time doing a solid axle swap, and we are not going leaf sprung in the front. We are actually going to do long arms and coils and everything, basically copying Meatball setup off of the XJ. This is a fairly common swap to do, doing a lot of XJ stuff onto these Blazers. But we're doing this fairly cheap. We don't want to spend too much money doing a lot of this, but we're putting a lot of really good parts into the axles. So it's going to get some XJ axles. They're actually inside the shop. That's what we're going to be doing today. But we are going to do XJ axles, 456 gears, lockers front and back, WJ brakes in the front, ZJ disc brakes in the rear. We're going to build some 1-ton steering, 1-ton track bar, coils in the front, of course, 3-link long arm, similar to that, and it should be a ripper. So today, let me flip you around. Today, while there's a little bit of space in here, I'm going to try to get this rear axle all set up and mounted to the Blazer. That's my goal for today. So this thing is a Chrysler 8 1/4. It's out of a 2001 XJ, so it's a 29 spline, not a 27. So it's actually a really good axle. And so we are going to be cutting off the leaf spring perches and the shock mounts. This one has been broken and re-welded, and then that one broke when we were pulling it out of the donor. So I'm just going to completely gut it, get all the brake lines off of it. We are going to have to get a new breather, I think, because actually this one's in pretty good shape. But the brake line's not there, so we'll have to see about that. But I'm going to do the disc brake swap on it today. I should have all the parts on the shelf over there. And like I said, get the perches ground off and everything. We'll get the Blazer in here and roll this one underneath. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow. We'll see how far I get, but roll this up underneath the Blazer, get our spring perches set up, because these I think are wider than what the perches that are on the Blazer. So I have Mike made up, so he works at a fab shop, so he made up some new perches already for this axle, and I imagine they're gonna go about right there if I had to guess, just eyeballing it. But for now, we're gonna get this thing gutted and get disc brakes on it. So let's go ahead and get started. So one thing that's really nice about this axle is we were gonna re-gear to 456s anyways, and if you look right here, you can see this one already has 456s, and that's 41/9, which is about that 456 ratio. So that's really convenient. What's inconvenient in this very instance is that this has a lunchbox locker in it, and I need to get those C-clips out so I can pull the axle shafts to do these backing plates. So I got to figure out how to get those C-clips out of there, and then I can get the backing plates pulled off and swapped over. And then we can, or pulled off, I won't swap them over yet, and then we can start doing some cutting. So for the disc brake conversion on this, we are actually going to be using backing plates and brackets from a Jeep Liberty. This is a bolt-on way to do disc brakes on these. And it's a little funky thinking about this the way that it's sitting right here, because this side is the bottom and this side is the top and this is the front. Obviously this is the back with the diff cover. So that's something to keep in mind when you're seeing the way that these brackets go on. But the Liberty disc brakes are just a nice bolt-on swap. And this is just for mocking up right now. These studs do need to be a little bit longer in the long run. This way, yeah. That'll be good enough for now. I have to put the axle shafts back in it and the C-clips just to hold them in, so that way we can get this thing on its wheels, and we can pull the Blazer in here and figure out where our perches are going to go, so we get our pinion angle set exactly to where it needs to be. Tack the perches on, pull the whole thing back out, weld the perches up, clean it off really good, and then cover all of this with some POR 15. We're not going for perfect, so I'm not going to clean every single little piece of scaling, rust scaling that's starting to happen on these. But that's why we got POR 15 as the paint instead of just spraying it with flat black. So it ought to be pretty nice, but I need to move this out of the way for now, and so I can clean up the floor and get some tools out of the way. We can pull the Blazer in here. All right, new day today. I've got the Blazer jacked up on the jack stands here, and I've got my jack underneath it because I'm going to be pulling this rear axle out. But a couple things to consider. First off, I thought about if we're going to be moving the axle forward or back when we put the Jeep axle in, because if you look at the frame where it lines up, it looks like it could come back a little bit. But with fuel tank clearance being what it is, I don't think I want to mess with that too much, because I mean, we're going to be cutting into the body, because you can see it's starting to rust in a lot of places around this wheel arch. You can see it's already banged up and hitting around up here. Obviously it's got these holes in it, and the rockers are pretty well shot. So we're going to use a lot of that to our advantage to make this into a really good crawler rig. So we're going to cut the rockers out and put in some either 2x4 or 2x6 square rectangle tube all the way down the length of it, 1/4 inch. But we're not going to come all the way to where this wheel arch is, because if you look in here, it goes way back, probably a good, I don't know, 4 or 5 inches. But you can see the inside of it right here. So we're going to try to keep the ride height as low as possible, but as tall as necessary. Having a spring over in the rear with the XJ axle over there is going to make this ride pretty tall. It really is. It's going to give it probably 4 to 6 inches of lift in the back just by doing a spring over. And then these are some bald 33s that are sitting on there right now, just for some rough idea where things are going to land. But I think the goal on this is to run 35s and be able to run up to a 37. But anyways, for now, the plan is to pull this axle out. I was thinking about the parking brake cable, how I'm going to integrate that with the new ones. This one is one of those that goes all the way in and hooks on, so I think I'm going to pull these drums apart so I can unhook the cable and disconnect it properly so that we have as much cable there as we need to hook up the parking brake correctly. I'm going to have to figure out the drive shaft, because that U-joint is definitely going to be bigger than the Jeep one. And then hopefully these U-bolts unbolt, but I am not going to count on that at all. For final assembly, it's going to get all new U-bolts and plates and a lot of like nice new stuff. This is just mock-up purposes for now. So I'm going to start disconnecting everything, take apart these drums so I can get the parking brake cables out, and then I got to disconnect the brake lines and put a vice grip on this rubber line right here so we retain as much fluid as possible, and we'll get to work. Alright, so for the drive shaft, you got to change the U-joint. If you want to not have to get a whole new drive shaft for it, you have to change this U-joint out, and you can get a conversion U-joint like this one that I got here. This is for a 92 Camaro with the aluminum drive shaft is actually the correct conversion joint. So this width right here fits the Blazer pattern, and this fits the Jeep yoke on the axle. But these have these little nylon pins in them if they've never been out before to get this U-joint out, which I've never seen. So we have to burn those out before we can press the caps out, and with these out they might just fall out, who knows, but we'll probably have to press them out. And then the aftermarket ones have these clips in here, so they'll actually clip into place and be like a regular U-joint instead of these crazy things. So that's what you got to do there. That's going to be all on the Blazer for now. We got to collect a whole bunch more steel and parts and things to start tearing into the front of this, but I'm pretty happy with how the rear went together. You can see we got new U-bolts and everything, got it all painted up and pretty. It's got the gears in it, the lockers in it. I haven't run the brake lines yet, that's why this is all dangling. This is the parking brake cables, but for now I'm really happy with the way this is set up. So we're going to call the rear pretty much complete because running the brake lines is going to be a simple thing. So stay tuned for the next video on this when we start tearing into the front end and try to get the solid axle in the front and get it to flex out and everything. And then we'll start doing some armor and trimming and all the other fun stuff.